It's done unto you as you believe. It's done unto you as you believe.
I'm gonna get there, yes somehow. Push my way through the crowd. I'm gonna grab you by the hand to a place we will stand. Stand proud, no fear. It's clear, I believe in you. I believe in me. Oh yeah, I believe that we can make this dream a reality. Yeah, yeah. Now's the time to be. Now's the time for miracles. Oh, it's in my heart so deep. 'Cause
I believe too. Good morning, Baltimore. Good morning, Baltimore. Welcome to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People here on WOLB 1010 Baltimore. In the Kathy Hughes studio, we're honored to be with you today. Thanks to each and every one of you who join us every week to listen in, to call in, and to let us know not only your thoughts, but your feelings and your ideas for solutions. I'm sorry, not your emotions. Yeah, we care about them, but we're not going to talk about emotions today. We're going to talk about solutions, and we're excited about our topic for today, and it's about the wholeness of the family. And we've assembled some great experts on the subject, as well as our expert panel of co-hosts. Please welcome Mr. Leo Burrows Jr. How are you, sir?
Yes, good morning, everybody, and praise the Lord and pass the ammunition for justice, decency, and fair play.
Yes, sir, and that's what we're intending to do up in here. And sitting next to him is the eminent, the brilliant, and man after God's own heart, because he can sing too. I believe it was Martin Luther that said, "He that sings offers double praise." And this man has been all over the world singing for the Lord. James C. Morant, welcome, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Patrick. Good morning, Baltimore, and I'm still blushing.
You still blushing, well.
Thank you for the compliments always.
And Doc Cheatham, I tell you, I've known him for years, and I've admired him and paid great attention to him, and always watched. He always seemed to be in the right place at the right time, and his experience and his wisdom is so greatly appreciated by me and by many here in this city. Please welcome Marvin Doc Cheatham. How are you today, sir?
I woke up, I'm not going to say I'm in my right mind, but praise the Lord that I am awake.
We all have those days. As long as we're awake, we can figure it out, right? If you don't wake up and you can't figure it out. And also the brilliant and an amazing soldier that we don't get to see very much of. He calls in on the line and confers with us, but I talk to him just about every day of the week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day.
Sorry to hear that.
A great legal mind that he is. He has just a photostatic memory that has always been a blessing and a help to all things that we need and to know. Please welcome Mr. Richard Terry. How are you, Richard? Oh, let me see. I think I need to put him in. Hello, Richard. How are you?
I'm fine. If you'll allow me, Patrick.
Yes.
I want to give people something to think about.
Okay.
As Rod Serling used to put in the Twilight Zone, for your consideration.
Mm-hmm.
This is the start of political season.
Yes, sir.
We just had in Maryland last week the Conservative Political Action Committee meeting down in Prince George's County at National Harbor. Watch the Israeli Political Action Committee coming up. Their meeting's going to come up. And what those things are designed to do is to set the agenda for what they want or what they'll demand. And then they're going to begin to put together the resources in order to put those people into office who will carry out what they demand.
Yes.
When will we as a community begin to do the same?
Well, and I totally agree with you, and that's what we've been trying to do. Remember, we had talked about last year that we needed to put, what they call it,
a political action committee.
A political action committee, and we need to do that. You know why we need to do it? Because when we endorse and we believe in someone, listen, they're not going to get there by a wing and a prayer. We're going to need money to do it, and we know we're somewhat limited, but if everybody gave $5, like they just did Bernie Sanders, and he's raised $10 million, if everybody would step up and realize that there are those of us who have good common sense, and we coming together, we're creating a group that will can be effective. Now, one thing I want y'all to know about my anchors, my panelists here, well, this is not a group think. This is not a group think by any stretch of the imagination. No, we are not. Not only are we diverse in our experiences, but we are diverse in our accumulation of experiences and wisdom, because we all have one thing in common: common sense. Common sense, which is not common to all. I want you to understand that. We are not here to dazzle you. We can't even we can't tell you what to do. We're here to hopefully to encourage your brain to think about it from a critical position, whatever we're talking about, and to set up your own system or your mode of operation and getting involved in it. That's why we're here. You know what I want you to do, Jason?
I was wondering when you was going to announce that I was here.
I know we don't get to see Jason very, very much. We got him a job up in here now. We don't get to use him no more.
I feel like chopped liver that nobody wants to touch.
We love you.
We love you. Goodness.
Oh,
Lord.
We love you, Jason.
That one alone.
Well, after last week with your when your wife called up here and told us to shoot that man sitting over there in the corner, and it was you.
I'm still alive.
You still alive. She ain't killed you yet, right? Welcome, Jason. Welcome back. We're always happy when you're with us. Could you lock Stacy in for me? That's line number one. You got Tracy, but it's Stacy. We just lost Richard.
Sorry. I'll get Richard back up.
Okay. You locked her in. We have for today a show centered around family wholeness. The family is the foundation of a people. Families. Yes, families. Because families are the ones that bring the children into the world. Families are the ones that sustain and teach the children and prepare them for the world. But we have problems in our families. And one thing I've learned is that a lot of people don't know how to be a parent. Nobody tells them, I believe, that every time that they decide somebody's going to get WIC or something, that they should have to go through some sort of education, some sort of preparation, especially for the first child, that they will understand who that child is and what that child is going to need to be able to grow up to be a balanced parent, a balanced human being. But we don't have that. But we have lots of organizations and people who are doing things to help to make this a better situation. And we are joined today by two people that are not only authorities, but knows what they're talking about because they've been up in there doing it for ages. I would like first to introduce, and I got to admit, as a complete disclosure, this is my niece. Her name is Dr. Stacia Henderson Alexander. She has a PhD in, I believe it's counseling. She's also the head of counseling at Paul Quinn College there in Dallas, Texas. And she also has had her own practice of counseling for the past 20 years. She has 4 different businesses that do nothing but counseling. Stacia, how are you today, sweetheart?
Good morning, Uncle. I'm good. Thank you.
Well, thanks. So I know she's very busy. Now that she got a 9-to-5 job, she can't call us. We was laughing last night. I used to just call her anytime and say, I need you, and she'd be available. But since she got to punch a clock at Paul Quinn, she can't get on there. So we pray that your boss don't hear that you're on the phone. James, I would like for you to introduce our next guest.
All right. Our next guest is Ms. Patricia Thompson. She's a licensed social worker, has been doing social work for 45 years, according to her resume. And full disclosure, I've known Pat since elementary school. She's a child of East Baltimore, the mean streets of East Baltimore, and she has moved on to do social work in clinical settings and in many other settings, family counseling, trauma, crisis intervention, and she just has a wealth of experience. Our paths have crossed again because we both are members of a group called Generations Family Services, which offers low-cost and free family counseling for families that are in distress or children that are in distress, school systems issues. So we're not here to push any particular organization. We're here to discuss the issues related to family wholeness. In an era of trauma and conflict and chaos. And so I think the issues that Pat and Stacia will discuss will further illuminate where we are and what kinds of things we need to do. The issue for me in particular is I heard someone say that America doesn't care. And we have these great slogans, make America great again. Well, I want to make America care again. And so I think that what groups like GFS or groups that Dr. Henderson Alexander might be working with would be illuminating for the audience. And so with that, perhaps
we'd like to
say hello.
Professor?
Just Miss Thompson.
Miss Thompson, welcome to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. Y'all should see her. She's beautiful. I mean, that black skin. She got on a little powder, but her skin is just flawless. Man, I just turned 70, so when I see people that are looking younger, I ain't gonna ask them their age, but I don't know how old she is. I don't know how old he is. But she is just gorgeous.
Well, you know how old I am.
I'm right with you.
Oh, okay. God is good, ain't he?
All the time.
Black.
I just told.
They say black doesn't crack. So.
Formaldehyde for breakfast.
Oh my God. That's all right, but we got hearts of 18 years old. Welcome.
Thank you.
Mrs. Thompson, we are so honored to have you here. And we are excited about the opportunity. And some folks going to say, well, they're not talking about politics. This is the spear point, head of politics, because family is directly related to our existence as a people, which we cannot avoid if we are people who are conscious and aware that the politics have put us where we are in so many ways in America. It has been political and a concerted effort to keep malign and to marginalize us and our people. Welcome again to you. We're so honored here to have you. James, I'm going to read your opening. It says, in February 2018, USA Today declared Baltimore as the most dangerous city in America due to having the highest homicide rate per capita in the country. During 2017, there were 343 homicides in Baltimore. In 2018, there were over 300 as well. This year seems well on its way to another 300 plus year. Sadly and regrettably, Baltimore seems to be retaining its title. USA Today describes Baltimore as being mired with violent crimes. How long will Baltimore be viewed as being in this context, and what steps should we take to ameliorate, in other words, to end this catastrophe? Research focusing on trauma indicates that children exposed to violence are more likely to be traumatized and are at risk of ending up with some involvement in the criminal justice system. We see this played out in schools with recent violence at Douglas and other schools in the city as examples. A U.S. Department of Justice National Survey of Children's Response to Violence reports that 60% of children and youth are victims or witnesses to sexual violence, physical violence, intimate partner violence, or community violence in their home, schools, and community. It further reports that 40% of children have been exposed to more than one type of violence, and that 10% have experienced 5 or more instances of violence. Concentrated exposure to violence can be traumatic for young people and old people too, unquote, affecting brain development and can have lasting effects into adulthood. Amen, my brother. Amen. Well written, well said.
Amen.
Well written, well said.
Well, that's a start. We as a community are suffering, and we haven't figured out a lot of good ways of relieving that suffering. We strike out at each other. We carry on disputes across the city, and all of these things damage our community. What I'd be interested in knowing, maybe if I can kick this off, what kinds of issues, what are the range of issues that you can discuss in 5 minutes or 10 minutes that you're seeing in your practice, in your work with a specific school or a range of schools?
And before you say that, I would like to speak of the applicability of this to not only people with children, but people without children. Even as adults, we don't know. We don't discuss these things. So for y'all saying, "Oh, they're not talking about stuff I want to hear today," I ask you, do not change that dial. This is going to be information that we need as adults and as our children, as we're raising our children, but we haven't been taught either. Nobody has shared with us. So it's really important that we not close off our mind because we think we're talking about children. People say, "Patrick, you never had no children." I mean, you damn right, I never did. But I was once a child, and I will never forget that part of my life, and none of us in here will forget how we lived our lives as children. Go ahead, Professor.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because the truth is that probably almost everyone has experienced some form of trauma at some point in time in their lives. A lot of the clients that I serve are adults as well. And I've learned over the years that I need to ask the hard questions. I need to find out what trauma they've experienced. And so I do it in an interesting way, because I tell them I want to know them from the time they were born till the point that they brought them here. And in telling their stories, I learned that there's been trauma that they may have not even identified. So the issue is that many people have been traumatized, may not even recognize it as trauma.
Yes!
I remember when I was in elementary school getting dental work, and the dentist filled my teeth with no Novocaine. And so now when I go to the dentist, I'm always tense.
Absolutely.
That's traumatic.
Yes.
Things like that have happened to us. Watching domestic violence in your family, in your neighborhood, that's traumatic. Different things have happened to all of us. We remember the really wonderful things that happened to us in our lives and the really terrible things. They stay with us. The thing is, we have to find a way to release the terrible things because they live in our bodies. They cause us to have strokes and heart attacks. They cause us to be angry. They cause us to be hypervigilant. And just have all kinds of reactions because we're carrying around. We've never processed.
Some of them deadly, like high blood pressure.
Absolutely.
That's an ongoing cause by stress, one of the undergirding symptoms of it.
And so we don't, if we haven't processed it, some of which we suppress, we push it down. So what most of us are aware of sometimes is the tip of the iceberg, the part that we see. It's that stuff we push down that we're trying not to think about, trying not to deal with, that is impacting us. And when, killing ourselves, perhaps.
Yes, and killing others in the process. So, Dr. Alexander, did you have some commentary at this particular point?
Yes, one of the things that we do at the college, every incoming freshman has to have a mental health assessment, and through that assessment, we've discovered that 70% of our students have a history of trauma, like you were saying, Professor, that they are not aware of. So one of the initiatives of the counseling center is to change their dialogue from mental illness to mental health, to get them to understand that those things that you experience have impact how you view society, how you handle your self-care, and how you manage your day-to-day activities. So it's one of those things that if we don't educate people, they don't know.
Right.
So there has to be more advocacy that's not centered around mental illness, but mental health.
Absolutely. And that is wonderful. When you said that to me a few weeks ago, just a light bulb went off in my head. It's funny how words have power, and people a stigma can be attached by one part of mental health, and mental illness.
Right.
Yes, go ahead, Doc.
So I'd like to comment. You made a comment earlier about nobody really teaches us how to be parents. There's no manual that comes with the child that says this is how it works. So there's no one size fits all when it comes to parenting. Each child has his own personality and needs. So the roles of a parent include loving the child
first,
nurturing them, providing a place to live, shelter, educating them, and discipline. If we fail to do any one of those things in the measure that a child needs it, then we spoil the character of that child. And sometimes, run interference with who they could be in terms of their full development because they're lacking some things. Everybody needs to be loved.
Professor, if I may.
To build on that, what we also stress is honoring that child for who that child is.
Absolutely.
So we'll have these skills of communication, conflict resolution, discipline, but we try to use a one-fits-all method, and it doesn't work.
The
reason we do that is because we fail to value that particular child's strengths and weaknesses, what their personality is. So my uncle is very supportive of the book my husband and I wrote, but we didn't only write it from our perspective, we wrote it from the kids' perspective, because we have kids who are totally different. We tried the same methods, but we wanted to know what was their response to it, and we were enlightened after it was all said and done. What they thought about what we did, because kids lose their voice in the family.
Yeah, Jason.
They lose their voice.
Lose their voice? Are they ever given a voice?
Right.
Are they ever given a voice? And I think that's one of the biggest problems we face, because if we don't validate them, how will they know who they are?
Well, I'm seeing kids who have a voice. When they discover their voice, the question is, what kind of voice is it? And so part of the disciplinary issues that we have in schools and in our homes is because some kids are having a voice. We grew up as people in an era who were to be seen and not heard.
Yeah, that's right.
And then the next generation wanted to be more Dr. Spock and listen to our kids. But we went somewhere off kilter there. Children should be allowed to express themselves. They have feelings, they have thoughts. And their life is controlled by the decision of adults. Nobody's looking at what they think and want. It's important to consider that.
Absolutely.
And give them a voice. So yes, many kids lose their voice, but when they find it, somehow, sometimes, it comes out in such a volume that it's hard to manage.
Well, I spoke with Dr. Santelises about this because of the Common Core program, which teaches parity with student and teacher, that the children are allowed to voice their opinions, and they're encouraged to do it and to write them down. And every facet of Common Core encourages that. But I said to Dr. Santelises, what kind of environment is this creating at home? Because the parents are not used to their children talking back. Of course, it's the way that they do talk back, but the fact that they do talk back to the degree they're challenged. I tell the story of this book called The Jewish Phenomena, where the kid, it was on the parenting section in there, the father says to his child, a fool and his money soon parts. And the kid looked up to his dad and said, well, how did the fool get the money in the first place? Well, if we had said that in our community, boy, you'd have been popped, you'd have been knocked out,
we wouldn't be sitting here.
We wouldn't be sitting here, okay? But that's how they raise their children. I tell another little story about, I lived with a Jewish family for a number of years, and one of the sons, he popped a fire at his mother. And in the black community, you don't hit mama. That's just that's a death sentence. And live to tell it. And I approached him and was grabbing his hand and stuff, and she said, no, Patrick, that's all right. She says, I brought him up to give orders, not take them.
But see, you still lose the hierarchy of the family. Yeah, there's still some hierarchy in a family. So, and this is what we teach parents now, so that we're not taking their voice. We're teaching them to use their voice effectively. So that when you get to the age of accountability or you get to those teenage years, you're not destructive with your voice because we've zapped you from your not even entitlement, but your possibilities as a young child. We don't teach you to value your contributions to the family. So when you're making rules, when you're setting the schedule, when you're talking about dinner and things like that, even shopping for groceries, if we teach you to critically think about how you can be a contributing member of this family and help us to live harmoniously, then when you get to your teenage years, you're not volatile. Because you've had all of these years to work through and learn how to resolve conflicts peacefully.
Yes, and to learn.
The challenge is that we have gradations of parenting. So what you're talking about is, an effective way to handle it. But we have some ineffective parents. And what I've learned is that some of them are ineffective because they're parenting out of guilt. If they've grown up in a troubled way and didn't have all the support that they needed, and maybe had kids early, and they were still trying to grow up themselves and meet their own needs, then when they become a parent, they feel bad that maybe they weren't there for their kids or maybe didn't make the right decisions. And sometimes they don't set standards or limits for those children. And that's where the rub comes in. That's where the problem comes in.
Fall off the wagon.
So the work with the parent becomes one where you say, well, why aren't you setting some limits? Why isn't there a consequence for behaviors that are unacceptable? And they feel sort of powerless, but it's guilt. It's guilt. And so one of the things I've had to say to some parents to help them get past the guilt thing is God uses you in life to teach your children. That's my acronym, GUILT. God uses you in life to teach your children. This is a part of your job. If you don't teach them right from wrong, if you don't let them know what's acceptable and not acceptable, then you're ruining it for them. You're going to get them to a place where they're going to be
dependent on you. Well,
dependent on you, aggressive, not respecting authority, and this is where the rub comes in. These are where the problems come in.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask this question?
Yes, go ahead, Richard.
Even though we have all of this and we begin to set boundaries for our children, aren't we also running into this massive headache of competing interests? Because you may have boundaries set in the home, but once that child leaves the home and goes out into the outside world and around his peer group, then isn't there this need to conform with the rest of the peer group?
Absolutely. They have so much power, the peers.
That's right. But we still have to plant the seeds.
Okay.
And they will eventually figure some things out. Some will get lost, but some will realize that the world isn't going to tolerate all of that. There are consequences.
You got to teach them that too.
There are consequences for things. So, but the question is, have they been taught?
And see, that's the problem now. Many of our children, they may know that there are consequences, but because they haven't had to experience any consequences with regards to their actions, that's why they do what they do.
But you notice they don't. They do it in public. To me, it's a retaliation. Go ahead, Stacy. Go ahead, Stacy.
That's not. It's about boundaries. They know exactly where they can manifest their behavior, behave in that manner. So there's consequences. We will not be able to control for every variable in their lives. That's not what God has called us to do. Like she said, we're supposed to plant the seed, raise them, give them our expectations, the boundaries that we have in our household. And then when you go out there, you exercise your voice, you exercise your right. If you make a bad choice, you'll have a bad
price to pay. Hold on, Stacia. Don't you touch that dial. We've got so much coming up. I want you all to hear some perspectives from not only our panelists, but I especially want you to hear what Doc Cheatham has to say, because he's been at the forefront for a long time. You've been listening to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People on WOLB 1010 Baltimore. Coming up. Bye.
WOLB Baltimore and WERQ FM HD3 Baltimore. Brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel.
The The views and opinions of the guest and host you hear on 1010 WOLB
are not necessarily those of the staff and management of Radio 1, its sponsors, or advertisers.
The thought of my sons growing up without me inspired me to quit smoking.
I talked to my doctors, and then I threw away all my cigarettes, ashtrays, and lighters.
I started exercising instead of smoking.
Getting support from friends online kept me on track.
Staying away from alcohol when I was first quitting was key.
Instead of smoking after I ate, I'd get up and take a walk.
I missed having a cigarette in my hand, so I'd hold a pen or a straw, anything.
Until I knew I wouldn't give in to temptation, I spent more time with my friends who didn't smoke.
I went to places that were smoke-free.
I didn't stay quit the very first time I tried.
I kept on trying, and I learned something each time.
Do whatever it takes.
No matter how many times it takes.
I quit.
I quit.
I quit.
We did it, so can you.
You can quit. For free help, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and CDC.
The views and opinions of the guest and host you hear on 1010 WOLB
are not necessarily those of the staff and management of Radio 1, its sponsors, or advertisers.
Grandma's hands clapped in church on Sunday morning. Grandma's hand played a tambourine so well. Grandma's hand used to issue out a warning. She'd say, Billy, don't you run so fast. Might fall on a piece of glass. Might be snakes there in that grass. Grandma's hand.
Oh, yes. Oh, man, that just gives me a chill. Just give me a chill. Y'all know I'm emotional. I remember Grandma's hand. I remember Grandma's hand making them cakes. She would put butter under the bed and let it get rancid. Maybe 6 months. And she'd do it right before Christmas. And, man, I tell you, have never tasted a cake that tasted like that. Then I come to find out that it was a process that after time on refrigerated butter creates another layer. And that layer has a flavor that regular cake doesn't have. Grandma's hands, that was healing. Every time I think about that cake, I tell you my belly go, one more time. One more time.
That's Family Wholeness.
Yes, that's it. Welcome back to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People here on WOLB 1010 Baltimore. We're going to go with, we're talking about family wholeness. And if you don't listen, call somebody, tell them to listen. We all need to take a listen to this, because if you are not learning, you're not growing, you are dying. James C. Morant, what did you have to say there?
I think I'm going to put someone on the spot here. But Patricia is in schools on a regular basis. She's consulting with all kinds of officials in school and out of school. I asked her offline a question like, what is the most horrific scene or the most horrific incident in her experience that she has seen over time? Especially now that we have things like Douglas, we have all kinds of things going on. So can she describe something that in her experience just shook her?
It's several things, so it's hard to pick one. So I'm going to name a couple of things. I think it's horrible when you get a message from your parents that whether or not you get to school on time matters. So you're missing instruction and you're not getting everything you could get. So that's one thing. I think it's horrible when you are chewed up and spit out and called everything, that it wounds you so deeply in terms of your self-esteem that you feel unlovable and like no one cares. That's not good. It's horrible when there is no discipline and you think you can do whatever you want to do. That situation is headed for nowhere fast. And I think it's horrible when your behavior is what children see and learn, and they emulate that. and they go out into the world and do what you do. And it's not going to be acceptable. It's going to not lead to anything good for them, but that's what they've learned. We have to remember the kids are watching all the time.
And they do what we do, not what we say.
Absolutely. Most of the kids that I encounter just want to be acknowledged. They just want attention. I can't tell you when I'm getting kids to go take them for counseling, how many of the other kids are saying, can I go? Can I go?
know.
Because they just want attention.
Yes, ma'am.
They just want to know that somebody cares about them, sees them. And so I do the best that I can with them, even though I can't do that. And then the other thing is, when a child needs counseling and the parent doesn't cooperate in allowing the counseling to happen. That's the other thing. So those are things that are really difficult to.
And that's a book right there to write on. Did you, Leo? You have
well, just an observation. Of course, we're right on target. This subject being the underpinning of how we raise our children, but institutional respect or lack thereof of parental rights. There is a code of public school conduct allegedly existing in Baltimore City public schools, and we don't know what that's about. We know what it says it's about. In other words, there seems to be a continuous sliding of the scales. The pendulum is swinging back and forth. If a parent disciplines their child, I didn't say brutalizes them, but disciplines their child, the child calls the police. And the parent is upbraided for doing that or arrested. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, the child beats up the teachers and he beats up his parents, perhaps, and we seem to be out of whack. Is there a happy medium, or have we given the society we find ourselves in now, in which the social media, the mass media, promotes violence, not conflict resolution, they promote violence in our culture. It's endemic. Where are we, and how do we regain a balance in how that is fair to all parties concerned?
Now, we were raised probably by corporal punishment, okay? Today, that is considered largely child abuse. So, but there is a way to still discipline children without having to do it in a violent way.
Amen.
I didn't have to raise my children with violence.
Right.
Taking away privileges. Kids will act like it, that they don't care. Oh, take it away. I don't care. But they do care. They want those cell phones. They want those video games. They want to hang out with their friends. And so maybe they go to their rooms and they go to sleep and it looks like they don't care. But they do.
But is it all right for them to hit me in the mouth?
No.
I'm 77 years old.
It's not okay for anybody to hit
and
anyone.
You hit me in the mouth, and then you tell me I can't retaliate because they're younger than I and they didn't know that they hit me in the mouth. I'm agitating, but I have a reason for that. Some things are reactionary, some things are common sense. And when we talk about there not being a self-defense law in the state of Maryland, I mean, people talking about self-defense law. What are you talking about? If I am the victim of an attack by an adult or a youth, do I have the right to defend myself? No, you don't, in some quarters.
Depending on the age of the youth, right?
I don't know. So I'm getting off, maybe not off topic, but I have a reason for saying what I'm saying. You're conveying a message that is unreal in the real world.
Professor and Dr. Alexander have both said the one thing that we must remember, if a child is taught the only way to resolve a problem is through violence, then the lesson they're going to learn is to be violent. And I agree with you 100%. I don't believe in corporal punishment. I hated getting a whipping. I just thought there was another way to do it, and explain to my parents, why can't we just talk about this? But they had grown up, and I asked my mother years later, I said, why did you always resort to hitting us and whipping us? She said, baby, that's the way our parents did it, and we thought we turned out all right, so we just perpetuated it.
I agree with you, but when the person beats me up, do I have an option as a thinking citizen to protect myself, or do I simply run away?
No, I don't think
so. What is it?
The thing, I think what you're referring to is when a child retaliates against an adult, and that adult is assaulted. What society is saying is that adult should have some type of toolkit to de-escalate the situation. And what I tell police officers when they come, when I tell behavioral health specialists when they come, if you're protecting yourself, that's one reaction. But if you turn around and beat the child senseless, that's an entirely different reaction. So one of them is saying, I'm trying to control the situation. The other one is saying, I'm trying to control the kid. And that's why you get the different response, because it is about the interpretation of that situation versus what actually happened. So, yes, we can defend ourselves. If I'm only 5 feet. So if another student comes to me, they can be in 3rd grade in 5 feet. But do I put that child in a behavioral hold to say that I'm de-escalating the situation, or do I step back and take a stance in Taekwondo and totally annihilate the child?
Patrick, can I say something here? This is Brother Jason. So I've never had to hit my son. I've never had to put my hands on him. I've always sat him down and talked to him about the consequences, and I could say to this day that he's 27 years old, never been arrested, was a scholar student in his school, played varsity football. And I don't condone that type of behavior. And even when you have a child that's a little bit aggressive, there are ways to deal with them.
Yes, and to teach them to use that aggressiveness. If they talk about little girls when little girls are they call them fast. But you do not know that that's an amazing gift that child has. You call them fast, but that's really the next leader that's coming up, because they got a no-nonsense mentality. They might need to be educated. They might need to learn, but you do not crush that spirit, because that is the spirit they're going to need to survive in this world. Doc Cheatham, now you're over there and you're awfully quiet. He wasn't sure he should come on the show today, and it kind of shocked me that he thought that he had an ideal that we might disagree with, and nothing could be farther from the truth. He has been news president of the NAACP. He has been fighting for civil rights and equal rights most of his life. But not only that, he don't just do it on the surface for the big boys. He has works with his community associations, so he gets to see things micro and as well as macro. Macro, the big picture; micro, the small picture. And you said some things this morning that sort of didn't startle me, because I know that you knew them, but your experience in the fracture of the family, and how that helps becomes a symptom of the bigger issues that we face as a group of people. Would you like to comment, sir?
Yes, and I'm glad we had a discussion about whether or not I felt I should be here, because I'm a team player, and I know sometimes the experiences I've had causes me to have a different opinion than I see most of the folks that I work and deal with every day. And I know what I've experienced in what we call the Wild Wild West. If we consider Baltimore City, so far as numbers are concerned, the homicide city of America. Well, I happen to live in the Western District, and the Western District probably 12 out of 16 years has been the #1 homicide violence area in the city of Baltimore. There are 3 basic communities that have experienced about the same level that we have. Western has basically been the first. Southwestern is normally second. Eastern is normally third out of the 8 districts.
9 districts, Doc.
Out of 9, you're right. So what I have seen, and I've been head of 3 different civil rights organizations. I've been president of probably 5 different communities. So I've lived this. And what I'm seeing here in Baltimore, and we talked about it briefly, and I think many radio shows talk about where the need is, the funding is not going. You know, we can talk about 3 communities, 3 organizations here in Baltimore that everyone agrees should have gotten money. Cameron Miles's group, everybody think they should have been first in getting funding. Got no funding. Umar Boxing. Got no funding. Keys got very little funding. Some of the groups that are doing the day-to-day work aren't getting it, and I'm doing battle right now. And I'm not happy that I'm doing battle with the principal of my school, but I don't think he and his administration gets it. We had a community that had 19 homicides last year. 19. There's no community in Baltimore that can say that they had that many. We have so many drug areas. We have so many alcohol areas. And what I'm telling folks, and I'm arguing and debating with my principal right now, I'm asking him and challenging him. I want to see your budget. I want to see how much money have you put in a budget for mental health. I said, these kids are seeing and experiencing things that their parents probably can't deal with, because some of these kids have seen more than their parents have. And I'm challenging him. I want to see the budget, because I have been saying to them, the school, I need to see not only where you're putting the funding, I'm looking specifically for mental health. And I, of course, recommended the Black Mental Health Alliance for them to reach out to. And it looks like they're reaching out to everybody that doesn't look like us and doesn't experience what we experience. And not that white folks and other folks can't do what we can, but we have a little more insight because we're dealing with it. So I'm challenging, my school on that. But I'm also saying, at the same time, we need active parent-teacher organizations. And I have two reasons for that. One is to get the parents to get more actively involved, so they can see what the challenges are. But my hidden agenda is most of the parents that are in my neighborhood have no clue of how to even be a parent.
That's right.
And I'm finding that to be challenging. And then I'm seeing what the city and the state is doing is they putting Band-Aids on major problems that we have.
Cancer.
And I just didn't want to feel that, I would come here. I'm not happy with how funds are giving out.
Right on.
In Baltimore City.
Right on.
I know that where the suffering is taking place, the solutions are not coming. Whether it's service or whether it's funding, it's not happening. But I'm in a neighborhood, I'll shut down with this. I'm in a neighborhood that a lady decided, and she got significant funding to put a daycare center in the largest drug building that we have in the city of Baltimore. She put the daycare center there, and this is where they have drug rehabilitation. It's not that they should not know that this is going on, but they should not have to deal with this in the morning when they go to school.
Yes, sir.
Lunchtime when they go out, and then in the afternoons when they come back out. And I call it, I'm talking about Cumberland, I'm talking about West North Avenue, I'm talking about Pennsylvania Avenue. This is one of the largest drug areas for drug rehab in the city. Why would you put a daycare center right there? And we screamed and hollered and said, we appreciate what you're doing. You're looking after our children, but you're putting them in the wrong place. This woman got significant funding. She don't live in Baltimore. Her kids don't go to Baltimore. They just feel that they can give us funding, put some Band-Aids on the problems that we have, and our problems evidently are enormous when you say that we're the #1 homicide city in the nation, and you're putting Band-Aids on problems. So I'm just reluctant to come out and talk to organizations when I think they're dealing with the peripheral. We need them to deal with the specific areas that are experiencing the most crime and violence.
Most valuable. Thank you so much. And you are absolutely right, because I'm sure we thought of it all. But the bottom line is, if you're putting a Band-Aid on cancer, the end result. And that seems to be the practice that we hold on. I'm going to try to get to the phones. Taylor, welcome to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. Do you have a question or comment?
Yes, how you doing? Great topic. This is my favorite topic of all times.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know who the brother was that just spoke, but
Doc Cheatham.
Doc Cheatham, and I don't know what school he works in, but I think whatever money he has, instead of getting therapy for the kids, he's gonna need it for himself. If he continues to go in there and think something's going to change with the principals, they have a particular understanding, and they sit down. They're sent orders down, and they follow those orders to the T. So,
people are shaking their head in agreement with you.
You're barking up the wrong tree. I've been doing this for like 30 years, and what I've learned is in my organization, we've just taken a group of men, and we step aside. We don't fight for funding anymore. We pay out our pocket. I put like 80% in, and all the guys that deal with me, they put in what they can.
What committee are you from?
I have a program.
What committee are you from?
This is Kirk Taylor. Patrick, I talk to you every blue moon about.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So we feed the homeless. We put kids in college. We follow kids from elementary all the way up the line. It's just that we don't have enough to do with all the kids. And we've talked to politicians, and we told them what the successful route is. They don't get it. They come out and take pictures. We don't even call them anymore. We just do what we have to do.
Man, I tell you what.
We're probably one of the most successful programs in Baltimore. I get kids out of 8th grade, and they go into high school. Some of them excel to playing varsity their first year coming out of 8th grade. You know, so
Sir,
to get them into college very easy.
Health component.
Go ahead, Stacia, speak up, sweetheart. We can't hear you.
I just wanted him to kind of share with us how he handles the mental health component within the group that you all have.
I couldn't hear her.
She would like to know, how do you handle the mental health components within the group that we know are there?
We kind of do our own social work. We sit down and we have a few therapists, you know, within our organization, and when we need that help, you know, we kind of spread it around to each other.
Do you find that the young people share it with each other? Do you find that, Stacia, do you find that happens when the kids learn something? Do you find that they share it with other kids, or it becomes such a private thing that they don't want people to know that they're getting help?
Well, no, they share it with others. I mean,
changed the climate. We've changed the climate here at the college. It was a huge stigma when I first joined the staff over here. But now it is so easy because I've changed the conversation. It's not mental illness anymore. This is mental health. So all along the walls of the clinic, we have pictures of celebrities who have gone to counseling, and it's titled The Face of Mental Health. So you see Chris Brown for anger management. You see Martin Lawrence for depression. You see Beyonce for adjustment disorder. All of these people are on the walls. So peer counseling is very helpful. That's what group counseling is. You're around a group of people who have some of the same experiences that you do, and I may gain some confidence from your courage. You may gain some courage from my sadness. It is how we build with one another. So that's why I asked him how they were handling that, because they are having such great success. It would be wonderful. I'm just going to tell you, brother, it would be wonderful if you guys would introduce a formal mental health component, so that when these kids graduate and they go on to live independently and they're raising their own families, there's still no stigma attached to mental health. They're okay that if I'm not around my brothers who have held me up for so long, that it is okay to go talk to a counselor, because if I was having a heart attack, you'd want me to get a cardiologist. So if I'm having an emotional problem, I need you to go get a therapist.
Come on in the room, girl. Come on in the room.
And we definitely can use that. But I wanted to make a point or two. One of the problems that I've noticed in the black community is that women are kind of overcompensating, and I hope I'm not going too far off subject. They're kind of overcompensating because they have a bigger problem. They don't have a man in the home. A lot of these parents are single parents, and you know, because of that thing from the 70s and that thing from slavery, where they just
would
try
not
harder
the man
than we try to
break the man, keep the man out the house. Yes.
Yeah, they separate us and we allow it. That really affects us and tear down our whole, not only our family but our community.
But through it all, though, now come on now, because I tell you, that I don't want to get no call saying, well, what he said, a woman can't raise a child. We know that they can. He's just saying, for the perfect example of a balance. I believe that's what you're saying, Kirk.
Yeah. So a lot of the discipline breaks down. I mean, a lot of times I'm suspending kids and I'm disciplining them because they think they have the right to talk back or be disrespectful, and I see a lot of times that's happening at home. Once a boy grows and he's attempting to be a man, at some point he's trying to figure out, how to accomplish things, how to be a man in life. And the first person he experiments on is his mother.
And when she pops him in the mouth, then he goes to school that same day and pops somebody else in the mouth, and then try to take, because he's angry, and he's going to take it out on the kids and the teacher. Thank you so much, Kirk, as usual. Very, very, very informative. Professor, did you want to say something?
Or she doesn't pop him because he is the man in her life, and she wants to keep somebody's love. So one of the things that I've done at the school that I am, I've established an after-school program, and I call it a trauma interruption program, because we can't take the kids out of the neighborhood, we can't take them away from the crime, but we can give them a break from it. And one of the things that I want them to have is fun. So we have games, and they have fun, but we also bringing in old school games. So teaching them how to play Mother May I. What does that do? It teaches you to follow directions. It teaches you to listen to someone. It teaches you to wait and obey whatever the command is. It teaches you how to get along. So some of the games that we play are designed to help them learn to get along with one another, how to learn to respect adult authority, which may not be happening the way we want to see on a regular basis. So there are all kinds of ways to incorporate better mental health.
Is there a component where you teach them that respect should be mutual?
Oh yeah.
See, that's
I mean that's a part of it too.
That's the big missing link. Is as adults we think that the child is maybe a piece of property and we can just sort it around. And I think that sort of devalues them and makes them feel like what they think and what they is not important. And I think yes, Doc.
I want to bring up one point.
I'll come to you next, Richard.
I want to bring up one point. I have to disagree with the caller that you had. We cannot wait till people get to the 8th grade.
It's
got to start at elementary school, if not even preschool.
Yes,
because we're seeing, and what I'm seeing at elementary school, I have both elementary school and a high school in my area. Can't wait till high school. I'm seeing right now the things that these kids are experiencing, the trauma that they having to deal with. We must start, if not preschool, at least kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. We can't wait till 8th grade. By then, they have been so harmed that it may be irreparable.
It is.
We got to start at a very early age.
And that what's on their mind is not trying to be better. Their mind's about the little girls and the little boys, and that's all they want to know about right, long, and then. And I can do it. I know I've got. Let me take this next caller. PFK Boom, how are you, sir?
How y'all doing?
Hey, how you doing?
Thank you. I just wanted to maybe call in on a reference to what Israel say. I usually get my knowledge from the youth. Israel said if there's no youth in the room, you usually don't speak on them. I was one of the youths that, of course, they was telling us that I needed Ritalin and all these things. As I keep on trying to tell people, it was many things placed upon me where people said I had a mental illness and all that. And I took all those little shots from people who wasn't a kid. Like my daughter say, her 12 ain't my 12. Her 12 is not your 12. Her 12 ain't the next guy's 12. So when we say the youth this, if everything was placed upon me that society has said I needed from the school systems and many things like that, only thing I wanted it to be, just like it just went through, I used to get locked up just so my father could come see me. See, shit like that, excuse my language. See, it'd be something real small while I stole the car, set the back porch on fire. Y'all saying it was mental illness, so when my father show up and then I tell him that, but it wasn't that he couldn't be there. He was, I had a custodial, two great parents outside the home, but he couldn't be there like a kid would want him every day like mommy is. I'm a boy, I'm growing up. So they were saying Ritalin and lock him up and taking me in front of the judge where he would say I'm sending you to school, and it was something very small. Now today, I'm a productive member of society from America's Most Wanted and all these things. Never took a medicine, never stood. I used to tell psychiatrists they were crazy because they would stand a little play card in front of my face and ask me what I see and all these games. So what I decided is I'm no longer going to allow him to continue on getting employed off of me. So I decided to resurrect myself, went back to myself. And I've been home for 20 years from prison, out of solitary confinement for 3 years. And the programs or the things that I hear, people who have never been in these conditions as us, never live amongst us every day, their diagnosis is totally off. Because 300 gangsters don't use no pills. We just, as I said, go find the kid that you are. You can only resurrect you. It takes a felon to lead a felon. It takes an addict, ex-addict to lead an ex-addict. See, people be out there lames. See, some of those people that are in titles was something before that title. See, that title was just your job. But I know a lot of addicts who are today who are caseworkers. You're actually a resurrection of an addict. You're not a caseworker, so you need to be at I Can, We Can, and the streets. But you're not just a counselor. You're not just a juvenile service counselor. You used to be out there. So you really need to be on Penn North and really go find yourself. That's what we do in 300 Gangsters. All our men go find ourselves. So I don't be going really looking at a kid. I literally see it myself. And it's lanes in yourself. So we don't need no medicine or no one coming and getting employed $100,000 a year because the black man has always been deemed that we were crazy. That's why y'all either had to go to the army, go to prison, or go to Rosewood. Let's stop playing into the games of America that everything that's not overstood has to be treated as being destroyed or he has a mental illness. To this day, you cannot tell nobody, my own people that would say, PFK Boom, crazy. He did. I can't even come in some of the rooms of my own people because they want to talk about working with us, but they won't come to Fulton and McHenry and do it. They won't come to Gilmore Homes and Bruce Court and do it. I don't work from a courtroom or a bedroom or none of that behind the doors. The problem is in the street. It's not a diagnosis. I'm in the street. But you got a million people with my name and my unit in their mouth, but they ain't never seen me nor did no work with us, but they'll put their name out there because of the things I just said. I'm the criminal you speaking of. I'm the murderer you speaking of. Then I'm the addict. I will be everything that y'all say my streets is, as well as I will be the resurrection and tell every last person that says we need to do this. I can tell you that we can do it this way too, and it won't cost $1 million. It won't cost $200. Love yourself first, and this city will be cleaned up tomorrow.
You know,
you trying to really say what somebody got to do. Look yourself in the mirror.
Yes.
You need to love yourself at, and then go help somebody in that area. That's all we got to do. This ain't money, and this is to anyone that think you need $1. Because we did this. We made our games. We had to come in the house before 8 o'clock, before the stoplights come on. But now we got to wait for the police to tell us, let's get back in order. Thank y'all for this moment.
PFK, I'm going to tell you this before you go. You made me cry, man. When you said that you would go to jail just so you could get to see your father. Man, that just ripped me to the center of my heart. And I understand because I see it every day. I see it every day. Thank you so much for your honesty and your sharing with us. Really appreciate that. Leo?
Just briefly, let me say, do we all see the contradictions? The absence of financial resources and funding for grassroots organizations, as has been cited by Doc Cheatham, is very real. But isn't that an attempt to ensure that we have poor mental health? In other words, this is by this is by design. The early childhood education must be anchored in the teaching of African heritage and culture through a variety of disciplines, whether it's STEM or mythology or whatever we do. We've got to do that in designing curricula that speak to the needs of our children, families, and communities. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say, yeah, we've got to stay on the battlefield. We've got to remain focused. But understand that the plan of the established order in this society, the corporate elite, the captains of capitalism, as it were, is to keep us divided, to keep us mentally unbalanced and unstable, and to make sure we are denied resources that ensure the not only the financial but the economic well-being and the physical well-being of our children through food and how food deserts exist, and we've talked about that before, and food deserts flourish in our community. All of this is by design. So the extent to which we're able to expose the differences here speak to our awareness of how we get people to refocus our efforts on winning the victory.
And I would like to add for a minute, right before you speak, Richard, what this is slow genocide.
Yes, it is.
And that's what we're missing.
The systematic extermination of a people.
That's exactly what it is. Hold on, Richard. I'm trying to get more calls in. I'll come back to you, I promise. Carlos, welcome to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. Do you have a question or comment, sir? Carlos?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The abiding question would be, in my mind, would be this: why do they hate us so much?
I know.
And when you feed our young people the gunpowder of the mean streets, and you don't and you don't socialize them properly so that they can go into the schools and to get education. And why do they keep those resources away from us? As Dr. Cheatham has indicated, the pre-K education being the most important.
Yes, sir.
Which means a village can raise a child. And only remember this, our mindset has to be what Khalil Gibran, the great philosopher, said. Your children are not your own. They belong to the nation. They come through you, but not from you.
Hold on for a minute. Hold on, Carlos. Hold on for a minute. We forgot a commercial. We got to come back. We'll be right back. You're listening to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. Don't touch that dial.
It's done unto you as you believe.
Did you miss breakfast with the Larry Young Morning Show? We got you. Have lunch with Labor every Tuesday, 12 until 1 o'clock on WOLB 1010 AM. David and you and labor issues that matter.
Lunch with Labor every Tuesday, 12 to 1 p.m. Labor issues that affect and matter to you. Tune in every Tuesday, 12 to 1 p.m. on WOLB.
People born during these years are 5 times more likely to have hepatitis C, but most people don't know they are infected. So even if you try to eat right, exercise, and take care of yourself, you can still have hepatitis C, a serious liver disease that often has no symptoms. In fact, people can live with hepatitis C for decades without feeling or looking sick. But over time, hepatitis C can cause serious health problems, including liver damage, liver failure, or even liver cancer. Getting tested is the only way to know if you're infected with hepatitis C. That's why the CDC recommends everyone born from 1945 to 1965 get a blood test for hepatitis C. Treatments are available that can cure this disease. So talk to your doctor about getting tested. It could save your life. CDC.
WOLB Baltimore and WERQ FM HD3 Baltimore.
The views and opinions of the guest and host you hear on 1010 WOLB
are not necessarily those of the staff and management of Radio 1, its sponsors, or advertisers.
I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess.
And teach them to lead the way. Welcome back to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. Carlos, could you close out? 410-481-1010. For those of you who don't know the number, 410-481-1010. Go ahead, Carlos.
Well, I was just going to say that as a black parent, I would never give up on my child. And if you look at the anniversary of 1619 to today's, to 2019, 400 years after slavery, and even before that 1619 we were here, you still have to ask your question. The question is, why do they hate us so much? Is there something within us that's worth redemption, a diamond in the rough, if you will, that they fight to keep the whole.
You know, it's so interesting. I just read an article from Newsweek that talked about the research that shows that there's no such thing as race. That we are all human beings, that there is no such thing as race. They tried, no matter how hard they tried. But they said that whites don't hate us. Really, they think they hate us because of our race, but they think it's more cultural. Because every time they went to a new land and they saw them doing stuff different from what they did, they called them savages. But Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, in her book, The ISIS Paper, she contends that when those albino babies were born in the villages, that the Africans thought they were such an abnormality that they kicked them out of the villages, and they were forced because of their skin color to live in caves. There is no history of black people ever living in caves. They had to live in caves, and she contends that was the first form of community child abuse. So I wondered if that was the reason. I think they'll find any reason to hate us. But when she said that, I wondered how many of them know that fact. I think they probably know that. I don't know what the answer is, but I'm trying to figure out too. But Carlos, thank you so much, as always. Yes, go ahead. Yes.
My question to both ladies is this. At what point do we begin to intervene in order to stop the trauma from festering? My example is this. Let's say an incident happens within a particular neighborhood or within a particular family. Let's say, God forbid, a homicide. We know that that homicide will have profound effects on that family immediately.
And forever, yes.
And forever. Do we then begin to send in interventions to intervene in order to get that family services and assistance in order to stop the trauma before it begins to manifest?
Yes, Ms. Thompson.
So let me speak to that. I received the grant from the Governor's Office on Crime Control and Prevention for survivors of homicide victims. So one of the things that I did at the school that I'm working with is I asked if I could send a letter home to parents to identify the children who have lost someone to homicide. So I got some responses. I'm sure there were much more kids than came back, but of those who came back, We met with those children. We talked about losing that person. We talked about trauma. We talked about how they felt and whether they were feeling safe. We talked about whether they got a chance to say goodbye. And one of the things that I wanted them to do was to have an opportunity to say goodbye to that person. So I had them write letters and say whatever they wanted to say to that person to help bring some form of closure. And then we put the letters in balloons and we did a balloon release. You know, it doesn't take the whole pain away of losing someone you care for, but it at least gives an opportunity to bring it to some place where they can be comfortable, hopefully, with.
And let out the emotions involved.
Right, exactly.
Because there were years ago, there was a program here in Baltimore that did just that.
Well, Roberta's House still exists, and they do that as well.
Around the time Roberta's House, but it was also called Child Development Community Policing, and this was something that Kennedy Krieger.
That's what James Moran put that in his letter. He talked about there was a program that did exactly that for a number of years. When a child would be killed, they would send a group of people out to minister.
I was a part of that first group because I got the training for it.
And they still do that in some measures. There are groups that go around and pray with people who have lost people in the community. The Ceasefire Initiative, helps to motivate those things. Roberta's House does their job. We're trying, Generations Family Services is trying to do our job. We're in the Park Heights community. But, yeah, more of that needs to happen,
I just have another comment just to throw out there. In Baltimore, we've had 5,000 shootings since 2000. I think the number was 2015. Really? And so, in addition to dealing with the death and destruction in the community, you're dealing with the remnants associated with someone in your family that's been shot. And I just don't know how you approach those kinds of issues or what the solution is for that kind of chaos. In addition to the death, you have the daily onslaught of injury, physical injury, and corresponding mental health injury.
Yeah, I mean, the wheelchair business has become really big. Because of all the shootings and the conditions that people are left in once they're shot.
Yes.
That might have been the breadwinner, might have been somebody's brother, who knows. So the remnants are there, and so everybody isn't murdered. Some are impacted, and we have to live with the impact of that, and kids get to see that.
Yes.
So, how do they worry? Are they going to be safe? What's going to happen?
Right.
How can we do that? We don't have after-school programs. We don't have rec centers closing down. We don't have enough safe places for kids to go where they can just be free and feel safe and comfortable.
Lemetria, welcome to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. Do you have a question or comment? Hello? Lemetria? Mitra? I guess she's probably away from her phone. Lemetria, are you there? Lemetria?
Going once.
Going twice. Drop. Oh, yeah, she was holding for quiet. We got Ernest on line 3. Welcome to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People, 410-481-1010. You still got 18 minutes, y'all. Call in. We want to hear what you're doing. We want to know what you're thinking. Have we helped you? And we'd like to know your suggestions. Ernest, come right forth. You have a question or comment?
Wherever there is drugs, major drugs, in all the cities, and organized crime, you have multiple homicides, not just in Baltimore City. California, Florida, all over, and all you have to do is Google. And it came into our community from Iran Contra, George Bush, and that group. And they were CIA. They gave the drugs to Blandone and Norman Manassas, and they picked out black individuals and gave the drugs to them. And the drugs went all over the United States. Plus, we had some major drug dealers in Baltimore City, by the way, that we treated like heroes. This country is being run, allegedly, by the John Birch Society. Most of the people that's in government and stuff are John Birches, like John Wayne and all that. Now,
Hurry up.
The other day, the police, Anthony Spencer, called into 1010. And the question was, did he have his gun on when he was slapping that 16-year-old boy? And he said, I did have my gun on. And the boy spit in my face. I'm a man. So that's why I had to slap him and kick him in the butt to show I was a man. Now,
who is Spencer? What does he do? I'm sorry.
He was a school police officer.
Oh, okay. I remember that.
That assaulted that boy over at Lake Clifton.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
Now, that's the reason he gave. Now, that's the reason he gave. And the other thing is this. I was on the police department for more than 25 years. I never had to abuse a 16-year-old child, and worked in a juvenile squad, and worked as a resource officer at a school. Never had to prove that I was a man by assaulting a 16-year-old child.
You think he took it too personally?
He had to.
He got fired. Now, he said that boy spit in his face.
So?
That boy never went to trial. He never went to trial and was found guilty of an assault. To my knowledge, do you know that the boy going to trial?
No.
I haven't heard of that. I never heard what happened after that.
Good point.
All right, thank you, Ernest. I'm sorry I had to cut you off, but we got so many people waiting. Archie, welcome to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. Do you have a question or comment?
Man, I just have a comment, man, and I kind of understand what the last caller was trying to say, but it all goes back to an economic situation, and everybody doesn't wake up. A kid don't wake up and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this bad thing today. He wakes up and see how his conditions is. He wakes up to see how can he better his conditions, what resources do he have, how can he use these resources. I want you to think like the average person without a title that doesn't have no love out here on these streets and only have himself or herself to depend on. So, we have to really, before we get all into the drug and all that, we have to understand why they are the way that they are. If you understand that, you know that you have no complete control over it.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, man. I agree with you 100%. This is Harris Rosen. He's a millionaire hotelier and spent $11 million to give everyone in a poor Florida neighborhood free college scholarships, free pre-K and daycare. The crime rate was cut in half, and the high school graduation rate increased from 25% to 100%. Mr. Rosen says he just gave them hope, adding, if you don't have hope, well, then what's the point? That's what I'm talking about right there. We got Sister Diane. Diane, how are you, sweetheart? You're welcome, as usual.
Good afternoon. How y'all doing?
We're good.
Good topic, Patrick, as always. You know, we always talk about this, us listening to the children, sometimes not giving them any answers, but just listening to what they want to say, because that's what they want to be heard.
Attention.
And they're not being heard at home. They're not being heard in their community, no matter how bad they are. They go into gangs to fit because they don't feel like they have a family.
Community, yes.
And that's one study that shows that.
Yes,
that the reason they join gangs is because the gangs show them like they're a family. They buy them new tennis shoes, whatever.
Yeah.
But we, as a community, like a couple of callers, I think it was Ernest just said that, with how the crack cocaine and everything, because we had thriving communities in Baltimore. But here's my thing. If every football player that plays at these NFL leagues and they would come into the neighborhoods and fix up homes and stuff, and they know it, and give a recreation center, and not just for Christmas and stuff, but build these homes, rebuild these homes in the community where people can buy the homes or even rent them and have a sense of community, even the recreation centers. We can do a lot ourselves. And
I agree.
Two doctors were saying that we are in trauma. We are, and we need to start working on our trauma.
Yes, we do. Thank you so much, Diane. Let me see here. We've got Winston on line 3. Winston, welcome to Patrick. Oh, we're good. Thank you, sir.
I repeat myself so much, but when they left Bethlehem Steel and they left West,
just had that conversation. Yes, go ahead.
But if we were forced these mayors and governors and the head of the city council, we have so many vacant schools that we could turn into vocational centers. Get our kids a decent education.
vocational education as well as book learning.
Westside Elementary School, we're trying to get it.
Yes, sir. Mervo. Yes.
I went to Baytown School in Annapolis, Maryland. We had wood shop, mechanic shop, every music. We had everything you needed to be well-rounded. The kids today, they don't have no music in their school. I don't even think they have physical education in their schools anymore.
They don't.
But we need to force our administrators to concentrate on vocational schools. There should be one in each side of the city.
Wasn't Carver designed to be a vocational technical?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Carver still is.
Not to the extent that it used to be, but we need more of them.
I heard a theory that they saw that black people were getting to be middle class because they were carpenters and plumbers and stuff. So they took the vocations out to shut that down. Has anybody ever heard that? How did because all of us had to take wood shop. All of us had to take wood shop. Everybody had to take some sort of vocation. What did you say, Richard?
I'll give you one better. Years ago at BCCC, when they had the Harbor campus downtown, one building was designed for purely vocational education. They had a HVAC course built into it, an auto mechanics course built into it, but then all of a sudden out of nowhere, we sold the building. It's now an office building.
Yeah, so it was conspiratorial. I don't doubt that. Let me go here. I believe that is Lemitra. You there? Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Are you there? Yeah, we can hear you. Come forth, sweetheart.
Patrick.
Yes.
Okay. What I wanted to say was I was the one that talked to you about the vocational thing, and I had read that they did take the vocations out of the school because most of the blacks, you think about when we were growing up, most blacks was middle class. Most of the families had businesses. So they decided to take the vocations out of the school so that our children would have to go to attend college. Okay, so they knew most of us could not afford it. And they also knew a lot of us could not attend it because of the knowledge. Everybody's brain don't work the same way. They knew that too. So they know if they did that, then we would go down. Our families would go down.
That was you. Thank you. I remember you were the one that made me aware of that it was a conspiracy.
It was a conspiracy. So what they've done now, we don't have the collective that we had growing up. We don't teach the kids. Remember, you might sit down and do homework with your next door neighbor kids. You might sit down and learn your ABCs with the next neighbor kids. When your mama wasn't there, the whole neighborhood was looking at you as the tribal thing. We're not tribal and we're not collective anymore. We don't help one another anymore. We don't teach about our culture. So we don't know who we are. We don't know where we came from.
I say that all the time.
We don't know where we're going because we're not taught that young. If we were taught that as they said at 2 or 3 years old, our whole idea about ourselves would be
yes, and each other. Thank you so much. Thank you, sweetheart. That's excellent. And thank you for reminding me.
The village and the tribe is gone.
That's right. Sir. And in a community like Park Heights, for example, where 2 doors on either side of you are vacant buildings, where's your where are your neighbors? Who can watch you?
We got the wonderful Kim Trueheart. How are you today, sweetheart?
Patrick, happy Monday. I am doing well.
Thank you for calling in.
Absolutely. I just wanted to invite parents of city school students to our town hall this coming Wednesday, the 6th of March at BCCC. And we're going to have a workshop specifically on college and career readiness that talks about the technical skills training that young people can select a path for in school. We're going to have the experts there to discuss it. We're going to have folks from College Bound to talk about that option. One of the great things about this event is the Mervo culinary students are preparing dinner, which is free for us. I really want parents to attend.
I went last year, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And let's go see what our children's cooking. I know, that's one thing that'll get us out there is food. And it ain't all archy and stuff, but it's good food that our children are preparing.
With rudabakers.
And that's with
What time and which building?
Okay, we're going to be in the Fine Arts Auditorium, and it begins at 5 o'clock with dinner service. and the program starts at 5:30.
And if you don't know where the Fine Arts Building is, you go on campus and you walk straight ahead all the way to the end.
Yes.
And the last building is the Fine Arts Building.
Yes, if you pull in the back, you can see that, and there's plenty of there's ample parking across the street at the Palladium, so you won't have a problem with that.
Right, and we have 5 buses around the city. Liberty Elementary, that bus leaves at 4:30. Arundel Elementary and Cherry Hill, 4:30. City Springs, 4:30. We have a bus leaving Mervo at 3:30 because it's bringing the young chef over. So please reach out to me if you need help with transportation. We're going to have free child care as well.
Very good. Kim, give them a number to reach you.
443-255-9413.
One more time.
443-255-9413.
Thank you so much, Kim, for all that you do.
Great
We'll
sister.
be there. Yeah, we love you muchly. Thank you so much. Mark C. Mark C's got a great show every Sunday. Or is it every other Sunday? Whatever it is, he gonna tell y'all what.
Fourth Sunday at 5. Yeah, every second and fourth Sunday, Pat.
Okay.
At 5, doing my Women's History Show this Sunday, God willing.
All
But
right.
man, I'm glad y'all are on this topic, man. And to piggyback on what Doc was saying, Pat, I've been a parent for 40 years. My oldest daughter, 40 years old. I got children aged from 40s, 30s, 20s, and because I'm foster parent of 3 of my cousins that was born drug addicted.
Wow.
And that's what's going on. That's what's going on in this city, man. We don't talk about the collateral damage of the crack addiction on top of the heroin addiction for the last 35 years, murder, abuse. Nobody stopped me from ever discipline my children or whatever. But you had so much abuse and all that kind of stuff going on because of the addiction and stuff like that. They had to kind of, change the rules. But to piggyback on what Doc was saying, that Jack Young came on Larry's show, and he talked about that $12 million every year, Pat.
Yeah.
That $12 million every year, youth fund. That's what I want to focus on, youth fund, which means that fund is to help the young people in any way that you can. That means mental health, brick and mortar buildings. We talk about that empty building over on Broadway and North could be made into studio apartments with wraparound services. Doc is a building over Doc's Way, Leo's Way. $2 million or so could go into the summer youth program every year. Things like that. It's a youth fund. So that's what we should have been focusing on in the first place.
Yes, I agree with you,
Mark.
man.
You got 2 years old dying, and what do y'all guys think? I'm gonna hang up. What y'all guys think about the lady, Miss Jackson, especially Doc, because we were at the vigil. Now her husband and her stepdaughter is charged with her murder. So I'm gonna hang up, and and y'all having a great show.
Thank you for calling.
All right.
Yes, it's time for us to close out. We won't be able to answer that question for you, but there's 2 things I want the parents. You got teenagers. They ain't trying to get no job. They're trying to get no education. They're constantly giving you excuses about they got a record, they got this. I want you there's a group called YapWorks. I want you to get in touch with yapworks.com. And it's just a wonderful program. It was on the front page of the Sun. I believe it was yesterday or day before yesterday. And they used to the kids having excuses, so they pick them up and take them to work. They go to the job. They teach them how to talk. They teach them how to dress. They teach them to understand what they've got to do to keep that job, as well as train them. You cannot sit up and let your child tell you, Mom, I can't find one. If you are interested and you're serious about your child and you think it's time for your child to come into themselves, YapWorks is another one. And another one I would like to give you all a number on is Brother Dwayne, who is an engineer who works with an organization. His information is call 504-931-8352. 504-931-8352. I wanted y'all to know it's called Civics Works. That's the organization he works for. Or you can call the office at 443-388-9017. They're doing incredible work too. You don't have no excuses now. You got to get them up out of there, and until you make them take responsibility, and as Professor Thompson has says, you can't undergird them with the foolishness. They got to know that it's reality is. God bless each and every one of y'all. You've been listening to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People with Mr. Leo Burris. Say bye, Leo.
Keep the faith.
Marvin Doc Cheatham.
God bless.
And Mr. James C. Moran and Richard Terry.
Bye, everybody.
Until next week, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, and thank you, Professor Thomas.
Thank you.
And Dr. Stacey Alexander. God bless you. You've been listening to Patrick Henderson Meet the People. See y'all next Sunday at 3:30 on 1400. Bye.
A lonely place to be, so I learned to.
WOLB Baltimore and WERQ FM HD3 Baltimore. Brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel.
Or any dream I could have ever had about a hospital. First was getting David here to save his life. But then I was told we wouldn't get a bill. I didn't quite process that. How's this possible? It's possible through all the wonderful people who donate.
It's pretty amazing when you consider that 7 years ago, we didn't have the treatments we have now. We cure 80% of children with cancer. If you think about that, I mean, go back 50 years, we were curing 20 to 30%. This is the miracle story of modern medicine.
The research here is research that we share with everyone else because overall, we want to help all children that have cancer. What makes that possible is people that give to St. Jude. They really help us to fulfill our mission, and we're so grateful to have them on our team.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Tiffany. I have some tips for you on how to quit smoking like I did. First, I did some reading about it. I found a lot of great advice on how to quit smoking and picked out the ways I thought would work best for me. I started by setting a quit date. Then I threw out my ashtrays, lighters, and matches. I did other things too, like exercising more, and it worked. But I'd still get cravings, especially on long car rides. To help me with that, I put a picture of my mother in my car. She died of lung cancer from smoking cigarettes when I was only 16. Now I have a 16-year-old daughter. That picture of my mother reminds me.
WOLB Baltimore and WERQ FM HD3 Baltimore.
The views and opinions of the guest and host you hear on 1010 WOLB
are not necessarily those of the staff and management of Radio 1, its sponsors, or advertisers.
Put your bad self. Say it louder. Say it louder. Look here. Some people say we got a lot of malice. Some say it's a lot of love. But I say we want to quit moving until we get what we deserve. We've been built.
Good afternoon, folks. Good afternoon. This is your host, Lou Fields, with BDX Live for the first Monday of the month of March. We got a very exciting show for you folks. We're going to talk a little bit about politics, business, travel, tourism, legislation, and of course, National Women's History Month. And before we get too far afloat, we'll be here from 1 to 3. You got 2 hours. Get your cup of coffee. Go and pull up to your chair. Turn on your radio. Tune in at 10:10 a.m. Or if you're on the internet and you want to listen on the net, go to WOLBbaltimore.com. Look like we got a very important VIP caller. So before I even do Black Facts, I'm going to take this caller and so we can get into the show. But I don't want to hold this young person up. Is this the delegate?
Hey there.
Hey, Delegate Jazz Lewis. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I tell people I normally always start with Black Facts, but I know how busy it is in that 90-day session you got down in Annapolis. So, folks, we're talking to Delegate Jazz Lewis from Prince George's County, and he's going to talk a little bit about MBE night and anything else going on in Annapolis that we need to be aware of. So, Delegate Lewis, how's it been going down there so far in this session?
It's been crazy.
Okay.
Delegate Marianne Lasanti and her racist comments, and how this kind of incensed everybody. The body censured her. There's a lot of talk about moving on to expulsion or other things. I think her district in Harford County is her Democratic Central Committee in her county just issued a statement asking her to resign. So there's a lot of public pressure on that. But there are plenty of things going on. I did want to let you guys know that we're planning, me and a group of advocates from across the state, a minority business night in Annapolis. It's going to be March 14th, Thursday, March 14th, from 6 to 8 p.m. There'll be free food. We're going to be talking about procurement, the MBE program, but we're also going to be talking about access to capital and innovation as well. I think given these times that we live in, it's crucially important for us to leverage policy and our policy makers to make sure that our minority business owners are getting their fair shot. We passed medical cannabis a few years ago. I had a lot of concerns with that. It moved. There's going to be a work group this upcoming interim on the possibility of recreational marijuana, no matter where people are at. I think there's a lot of concern to make sure people get it right this time. The first go around, and we're looking at that. Of course, we passed out of the House $15 minimum wage. That's going to be phased in over about 8 to 9 years. It's supposed to be a slow phase in, particularly to help our smaller businesses. And they're going to establish like almost like a fund to help folks that are hurt more harder than others. More details of that's supposed to come. But I really appreciate you having me on to talk about Minority Business Night. We have about 300 RCPs. It's going to be a great time.
Yeah, thank you, sir. And the big issue right now, it seems, we have legislation from Anne Arundel County, legislation from Prince George's County, and legislation from Baltimore City dealing with what's going to happen with Pimlico and the Preakness. I don't see a lot of cohesiveness between these three counties working together to keep the Preakness in Baltimore. Have you looked at those bills?
I haven't. I mean, I'm aware of it.